You're at a company dinner, surrounded by colleagues, when your boss loudly announces to the entire table, she's too ugly to keep a husband. That's why she got divorced. Just look at her. The room goes silent. 20 people stare at their plates. Your face burns with humiliation. But then, the door opens. What happened next changed everything. And by the end of this story, that same boss was being escorted out by security while I took his job. I'm Naeem Everett, and this isn't just another workplace drama. This is about what happens when you refuse to stay silent and fight back with strategy, not emotion. Let me set the scene. 5 years with Palmer Technologies, climbing from junior analyst to senior project manager through pure grit. My personal life? A disaster. I'd just finalized my divorce after discovering my husband's 2-year affair with my best friend. The wounds were fresh, and my supervisor Terrence Fowler knew exactly where to strike. That night at Castellano's restaurant was supposed to celebrate our record-breaking quarter. Instead, it became my public execution. But here's where the story gets interesting. As Terrence's cruel words hung in the air, a tall, impeccably dressed stranger walked directly to our table, kissed my cheek, and said, "Sorry I'm late, gorgeous." My boss literally choked on his wine when he saw who it was. Elliot Walsh, CEO of Horizon Innovations. The client our company had been desperately chasing for months. "Naeem," he said warmly, "I spotted you from across the restaurant." Our conversation at last month's industry conference was the highlight of my evening. Watch Terrence's face transform from smug satisfaction to pure panic, the wine dripping down his chin as he scrambled to compose himself. "I've been reviewing your proposal," Elliot continued, never even glancing at Terrence. "It's exactly what we need. Lunch next week to discuss details?" That night, I didn't cry like I had every night since my divorce. Instead, I planned. See, Terrence's cruelty wasn't random. 3 months earlier, when the director position opened, a role I was perfectly qualified for, he told me I lacked executive presence. He promoted Bryson instead, someone with half my experience whose reports I regularly had to fix. What nobody knew was that at last year's holiday party, Terrence had cornered me, drunk and aggressive. When I rejected his advances, he whispered, "Be careful, Naeem. I decide who succeeds here." That's when I started documenting everything. Every inappropriate comment. Every time women's ideas were dismissed, only to be praised when men repeated them. The financial discrepancies. The missing equipment. The suspicious expense reports. I created a password-protected document and added to it daily. The morning after the restaurant incident, Valencia from marketing asked to meet for coffee. "What happened last night was unacceptable," she said, sliding her phone across the table. On it, a recording of Terrence taking credit for her marketing strategy, the same strategy he'd called too ambitious when she first proposed it. "I'm not the only one," she whispered. By day's end, Dexter had documentation of Terrence stealing his client acquisition methods. Lumi from accounting had noticed the same financial irregularities I had, plus more. That Saturday, 4 of us gathered in my kitchen. Not to complain, but to strategize. What we discovered was staggering. A man who'd built his career on stolen ideas, manipulated numbers, and systematically blocked women and minorities from advancement. The quarterly board meeting was in 2 weeks. Terrence would present his department update and take credit for landing Horizon Innovations. I reached out to Elliot with a simple question about scheduling a video call during our board meeting. Terrence struts into the boardroom, confidence radiating as he prepares his grand presentation. He launches into his achievements, most directly attributable to people he'd sidelined. The crown jewel? Announcing the Horizon Innovations deal worth millions. Through persistent relationship building and strategic negotiation, he boasts, "I've secured what competitors have tried and failed to get for years." I raise my hand. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. The room goes silent. With your permission, I'd like someone to clarify. I open my laptop, and Elliot Walsh's face appears on the main screen. Good morning, Elliot says, pleasantly. Naeem suggested I help clear up some confusion. What follows is Elliot explaining how he'd only ever met and worked with me. Never spoken to Terrence. Never even heard his name. Terrence's face drains of color. But I wasn't done. I distributed copies of a comprehensive report to each board member. Not complaints about personal treatment. A business analysis of systematic misconduct. Financial discrepancies. Talent suppression. Credit theft. All meticulously documented. Valencia played her recording. Dexter presented his evidence. Lumi showed the financial analysis. Throughout it all, I remained calm. This wasn't about my humiliation or hurt feelings. This was about business misconduct that had cost the company money, opportunities, and talent. 30 minutes later, I'm called back to the boardroom alone. Terrence is gone. We've placed him on administrative leave, the CEO announces. Based on today's evidence, the investigation will likely confirm your findings. He pauses. We need an interim department head. Would you be willing to step into that role and be considered for the permanent position? 5 years of work. Months of documentation. Weeks of strategic planning. All leading to this moment. I would, I reply, my voice steady despite my racing heart. As I'm leaving, I see Terrence being escorted out by security. Our eyes meet briefly. The most devastating part for him wasn't losing his job. It was realizing I'd beaten him by being exactly what he claimed I wasn't. Executive material. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. The financial discrepancies I'd discovered? They went much deeper than one man's misconduct. They pointed to something systematic, reaching all the way to the executive floor. And I now had the perfect position to investigate further. Within days of my promotion, the CEO, Augustine Perry, calls me in. His message is clear. Focus forward, not backward. External auditors are coming. Don't dig into past issues. The threat is subtle but unmistakable. That night, my team and I discover the truth. Augustine and other executives had been systematically embezzling for years, using Terrence as their enforcer. Shell vendors. Client overcharges. Hundreds of thousands siphoned annually. When Augustine tries to frame us by placing the entire team on administrative leave, we're ready. I reach out to Elliot, not as a romantic interest, but as a CEO about to sign a major contract with a potentially fraudulent company. Send me everything, he says without hesitation. Within hours, he's arranged meetings with other affected CEOs and major shareholders. We present our case not as disgruntled employees, but as professionals exposing systematic fraud. By afternoon, Augustine is being escorted out by security. 3 executives terminated. Full restitution to overcharged clients. And me? Not just reinstated, but promoted to Vice President of Operations. 6 months later, I'm hosting a celebration at the same restaurant where it all began. As I raise my glass to toast resilience and courage, I catch Elliot's eye, no longer just a business ally, but something more. Want to know the beautiful irony? Terrence was right about one thing that night. I couldn't keep my husband. But not because I was too ugly, because I was too strong to stay where I wasn't valued. And when Terrence later applied to one of Elliot's competitor companies, the CEO called for a reference. Elliot's response? He lacks executive presence. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or humiliated, remember this: your worth isn't determined by those who fail to see it. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's rising so far above them that they become irrelevant to your story. Standing up for yourself can inspire others to do the same. This journey taught me that with strategy, evidence, and allies, you can transform not just your life, but entire systems. Augustine Perry was eventually indicted on 37 counts of fraud and embezzlement. Justice comes in many forms. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories of transformation and triumph. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they have more power than they realize. Because together, we can create workplaces where talent is recognized, integrity is rewarded, and no one has to suffer in silence. What's your story of standing up for yourself? Drop it in the comments below. Until next time, remember, never let anyone dim your light. Sometimes your darkest moments become the catalyst for your greatest victories.